Hi, I'm John Green. Welcome to Crash Course Western World History. Today we'll be talking about Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the ultimatums issued towards the end of the war. Toward the end of the war, the Allied forces became desperate and issued Japan an ultimatum in order to end the war on the Pacific Front. This resulted in the first two atomic bombings. World War II brought about my two least favorite things: bombs and ultimatums.
Mr. Green, what do ultimatums have anything to do with World War II?
Well, I'll tell you, me from the past. Ultimatums are essentially what caused the end of the World War, as well as your 8th grade relationship. So, for most of the war, Germany had the upper hand. When the US finally defeated Germany, it looked as if they had finally won the war, but Japan would not give up.
From platforms built to duplicate decks of troop transports, United States Marines rehearse invasion tactics they've already been called upon to use. Scrambling down cargo nets into assault boats, they go to establish bridgeheads upon some enemy beach.
Japan and the US had battled at the Pacific Front for most of the war, trying to gain control of the islands between the United States' west coast and the east coast of Japan. The United States assumed that Japan would surrender easily, but they wouldn't, which led to Hiroshima and Nagasaki being bombed. Okay, so let's rewind and go back to see how the US and Japan got to this place of violence. On December 7th, 1941, Japan unprovokingly attacked Pearl Harbor, a US naval base in the Hawaiian territories. This is the event that brought the US into World War II. Prior to this, the US had a neutral stance that allowed for the sale of arms to the Allied forces.
Oh, Mr. Green, didn't the US destroy Japan in this battle since the US is like the best?
No, not exactly. Japan actually destroyed most of the United States' naval fleet. So in attacking Pearl Harbor, Japan destroyed most of its opponent's naval fleet and brought them into the war. So, let's get to the end of the war. On April 30th, 1945, Hitler killed himself. 7 days later, Germany surrendered to the Allied forces. The Allies assumed that Japan would surrender just as easily, but they would not. The Allies held a summit at Potsdam to discuss Japan refusing to surrender. The Allies decided to issue an ultimatum to Japan. We call upon the government of Japan to proclaim now the unconditional surrender of all Japanese armed forces, and to provide proper and adequate assurances of their good faith in such action. The alternative for Japan is prompt and utter destruction. On August 6, 1945, during World War I, an American B-29 bomber dropped the world's first deployed atomic bomb over the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The results were catastrophic. Immediately, 80,000 people died, with even more being injured. Buildings were destroyed, the city was destroyed. To the world, it looked as if Japan would have no choice but to surrender, but they still would not. So on August 9th, 1945, the US dropped a second bomb on the city of Nagasaki. The results were more or less the same. Instantly, tens of thousands of people were killed and the city was in shambles. 3 days after the second bomb, Japan surrendered.
But by early morning Moscow time on August 9th, the Soviet Union surprised Japan by declaring war and invading a Japanese-held city. This shook Japanese officials, who did not expect the Soviets to violate their neutrality agreement. It also removed a huge assurance for Japan that the Allies would not be able to easily invade them by land. Several hours later, the US dropped another atomic bomb, this time in Nagasaki, killing as many as 75,000 people. After 6 days of deliberations, Japan officially announced their unconditional surrender on August 15th, finally ending World War II.
The aftermath of the bombs can still be seen today. The effects of radiation were horrible and have killed anything living in the surrounding areas of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The question that floods everyone's minds is, was the US correct in bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end the war on the Pacific Front? If we look at what Hiroshima and Nagasaki look like now, I think we will all get a clear answer.
Researchers here have published hundreds of papers documenting the links between radiation and its ill health effects, primarily cancer. They've written a book that is the basis for the standards for acceptable radiation exposure. Among the findings over the years, thyroid cancer and leukemia are the first to strike. Solid cancers come 10 to 30 years later. Young people are more susceptible to developing cancer than adults, and women are more susceptible than men. Perhaps the most important, a single exposure increases cancer risk for life. The bottom line, of 94,000 survivors studied over 70 years, about 1,000 additional cases of cancer can be attributed to radiation from the bombs.
Within the first few months after the bombing, it is estimated by the Radiation Effect Research Foundation, a cooperative Japan and U.S. organization, that between 90,000 and 166,000 people died in Hiroshima, while another 60,000 to 80,000 died in Nagasaki. Those are just the short-term effects that happened immediately after the bombs. The long-term effects caused cancer, gene mutation diseases, and caused an imbalance in the ecosystem in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Mutations can occur spontaneously, but a mutagen like radiation increases likelihood of a mutation taking place. In theory, ionizing radiation can deposit nuclear bond breaking energy, which can damage DNA, thus altering genes. Okay, so now it's time for the open letter. Dear Japan, we're very sorry that we killed over 200,000 people in 2 of your cities, as well as causing radiation to destroy them. We never intended to cause your cities to be radiation infected forever. We just needed a quick fix to end the war. When you challenged us with your strength and did not surrender, to us immediately caught us by surprise. We are the most powerful country in the world, and everyone should be afraid of us. Again, sorry for killing thousands of people and damaging the environment in your country. Love, the United States of America.
Today, the lasting effects of the bombings can still be seen throughout the 2 cities. Despite repairing the physical damage and rebuilding the relationship between the U.S. and Japan, the events continue to weigh heavily in both countries' histories.
So, overall, I think it's quite clear that the U.S. acted impulsively and should have considered the long-term effects that radiation would have on Japan and the environment for everyone in the world. Taking human life is horrible. Nagasaki and Hiroshima caused many people to be taken away from their families as well as their communities as a whole. Destroying Nagasaki and Hiroshima were the results of an ultimatum to end the war on the Pacific Front. I don't remember. I think I am. It's clear that the U.S. acted impulsively. I can't talk! Okay, in their surroundings. Oh. There's a moth in here. I'm gonna die. That's not a moth. I thought bees went to sleep at night. Don't you ever want to say something, but you just keep your mouth shut?